my personal experience with Lyme disease has been a long one. I was initially bit by a tick when I was about 17 years old in 2006. And because I live in Kentucky and because it's not super common at the time, they didn't think that Lyme disease is here. That's the reason that I did not get tested for Lyme disease at the time. Although I had all the classic symptoms, I was spending time in the wooded area. I came back. I didn't do a tick check. Unfortunately, I didn't know I needed to do it. I wasn't educated. I did come down with a summer flu, is what they called it, and they kind of brushed it off. But I was sick for a month. I was very, very sick. I got put on some antibiotics. They weren't the right antibiotics, but they were enough to kind of make me feel a little bit better. But from that moment on, I never felt quite right. And it took 5 years for me to get the proper diagnosis that I had Lyme disease. And over the course of the 5 years, my symptoms, which started out as just these flu-like symptoms, started to spread to different areas of my body. I started to have gastrointestinal symptoms. Then it spread into the brain and I started to have neurological symptoms. Then it spread throughout my body and I started to have just different hormonal dysregulation. And it was something that just was slowly moving around my body. And it's not uncommon for patients to just be sent to all different doctors. So I went to see doctors in their own specialty, and they never really connected the dots until finally 5 years down the road, I found a doctor who thought that they should test me for Lyme disease. And at the time, I didn't really think that it would come back as anything because, again, I was not educated on Lyme disease, on how you can catch it, the fact that it could be chronic. But luckily he did. So I had testing done. I did have the standard Western blot test, which is not super accurate, but it is good to look at because it shows you the different bands which come up. And there are about 5 which are Lyme specific. And people who have chronic Lyme disease, they typically don't have all 5 of them because their antigen levels over time have dropped. So they're not going to all show up, but patients do typically have at least 1 or 2 bands which come up, which show that there has been Lyme disease in the body. So I did have that test. I did have 2 bands come up positive on the Western blot. I also had something called the CD57 level, and this is also very common in the Lyme community. The CD57 is a specific natural killer cell. And this is a cell in the body which is very, very specific for Lyme disease. It specifically attacks the Lyme disease. Therefore, if somebody has chronic Lyme disease, this number will be very low. It's supposed to be over about 100. That's what's normal. And mine was at about 11. So it was very obvious to my doctors that I definitely did have Lyme disease. Another test that I had done also in conjunction was a test from Fry Labs. It is a PCR test, which is a DNA testing looking for bacteria. And this is how I found out that along with Lyme disease, I also have Bartonella and a co-infection called protomyxoa. And those were the 3 things that I was diagnosed with. And I was diagnosed in 2011. I began treatment for it in 2012, probably about the middle of 2012. And I'm still in treatment, but it's because I actually relapsed in the middle of my treatment. So I was better, and then I had an unfortunate relapse, and so I'm kind of still in the midst of treatment right now. Definitely the longer you have the disease, the harder it is to repair the damage, the harder it is to get back your quality of life and get back on your feet. It's not impossible, and if you're working with the right doctors, then they're going to be able to put you back together piece by piece. But for me, because I had Lyme disease, it definitely created a lot of, autoimmune conditions and food intolerances, and just so many other things came hand in hand with it that it was just like this giant ball that I had to unravel, piece by piece, and peel off the layers and heal the infections and deal with any of the co-conditions, which I had spoke about, that come with it. So it's been a long road. I feel like hopefully I'll be there, at the finish line soon. But yeah, it's something that's, spanned over 10 years of my life. So definitely I've had a lot of personal experience with it.